Breaking news out of the State Department. Donald Trump and his administration have officially turned their backs on a longtime U.S. ally. And this is going to get really ugly. Welcome to Occupy Democrats. I'm David Reddish. Donald Trump loves to brag about how the world bows down to him and how he can solve any problem. Of course, that does nothing to address the problems the man creates, and they are legion. But never mind. On the campaign trail, Trump boasted that he could end the war in Ukraine on his first day in office. Now, more than 100 days into office, he has dialed that back. Listen to what he said earlier this week.
Because it was always the apple of his eye. I talked to him. Ukraine was the apple of his eye. I think he wanted the whole country.
You've said for months.
And because of me, I do believe that he's willing to stop the fighting. Don't forget,
you think he wants peace? You think Vladimir Putin wants peace?
I think he does, yes. I think he does. I think
even with the raining missiles on.
I think he really, his dream was to take over the whole country. I think because of me, he's not going to do that.
Do you trust him? Do you trust him?
I don't trust you. I don't trust a lot of people. I don't trust you. Look at you. You come in all shooting for bear. You're so happy to do the interview.
And yet some people still think Trump is connected to reality. Wait until you see what's next. Also this week, the administration announced that it had put forward a deal with Ukraine to end the war. Check out this news from yesterday.
The US says it's ready to sign a much-anticipated resources deal with Ukraine. There's no clarity on when it will be signed, although the Ukrainian economy minister is on her way to Washington. The deal is said to provide for a 50-50 joint economic fund between Kyiv and Washington. President Trump was asked this question by journalists at his cabinet meeting.
That the Ukraine minerals deal is about to be signed in the next 24 hours or so. There's some reports saying that. And if it's true, has the deal changed at all from the last time we heard about it?
Well, I'll ask Scott to answer the question because he's responsible for it.
Yeah, our side is ready to sign. Ukrainians decided last night to make some last-minute changes. Well, we're sure that they will reconsider that, and we are ready to sign this afternoon if they are.
Can you talk about those last-minute changes? What was removed or put in its place?
Nothing's been removed. It's the same agreement that we agreed to on the weekend. No changes on our.
Well, it was Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, and President Trump went on to talk further about the deal and what he's looking for.
I didn't want to make a complicated deal. I didn't want to make a deal that couldn't be made because Ukraine doesn't have very much money. They're going through a very bad period of time. It's been brutal. But I felt very foolish being a judge, so I said, well, we want something for our efforts beyond what you would think would be acceptable. And we said rare earth. They have very good rare earth. As you know, we're looking for rare earth all the time. Rare earth is called rare for a reason. And they have a lot. And we made a deal where our money is secure, where we can start digging and doing what we have to do. It's also good for them because you'll have an American presence at the site, Chris.
Interesting how nobody actually wanted to go into the specifics of that deal, which somehow awarded the U.S. massive amounts of natural resources from Ukraine. It's also interesting that the details of Russia's concessions seem to get glossed over in most of these conversations. Could there be a reason for that? As it turns out, yes there is. An unpleasant one. Take a look.
Nick, breaking news there coming out from the U.S. today, also quite important. The U.S. saying it will no longer play a role in the peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. What do we know so far?
Yeah, importantly, the US saying it will no longer mediate in any peace talks. The US State Department's spokesperson, Tammy Bruce, was speaking about this to reporters. She said it was now up to both sides. They needed to reach an agreement, she said, on their own. So it is certainly a change of US approach. However, they are saying that they remain engaged in trying to find a peaceful solution to the conflict. They just do not want to be the people who are speaking directly to Ukraine and to Russia to try and get them around the negotiating table. Tammy Bruce followed up with other comments saying, "We are not going to fly around the world at a drop of a hat to mediate meetings." She said now is the time that they, meaning Russia and Ukraine, need to present and develop concrete ideas about how this conflict is going to end.
And just like that, the US abdicates its leadership role in the world. I guess it was harder than you thought, right, Donald? Multiple outlets further report that Russia has rejected the US minerals deal from earlier this week, as well as a 70-day ceasefire proposal. That shouldn't surprise anyone, since Putin has a nasty habit of breaking his own ceasefires in Ukraine. Look, contrary to Trump's stupid remarks, Putin has no intention of ending this war. He wants Kyiv. He wants all of Ukraine, and he wants Ukrainian President Zelensky dead. Apparently, nobody in the Trump administration has read the wide reporting by a litany of journalists that Putin is obsessed with Ukraine. He sees it as the key to rebuilding a Russian empire, the kind of bloc seen during the Soviet years. The fall of communism is one thing. Russians don't really miss it. But they do miss the Soviet Union and the kind of economics it brokered between its members. That's why Putin is unrelenting, why he hasn't left himself any kind of out in this situation. Do you think he's just going to give back all the conquered land, throw up his arms, and go home with nothing to show for all of this? Of course not! In other words, the war in Ukraine is far from over, and it looks like it is up to Ukraine's European allies to take a leading role in ending it, or at least preserving Ukraine. And before you say, good, we shouldn't be spending the money, it's not our problem, and all the other isolationist nonsense Republicans love to spew about the situation, consider this. Yes, we send billions of dollars worth of aid to Ukraine so they can keep their military functioning and armed. Where do you think they buy those weapons? Spoiler alert, mostly from the US. In essence, the money we spend goes back into the pockets of Americans. We can talk about the ethics of that, but it's a different issue entirely. And consider this other, more alarming prospect. It's highly likely that without US leadership, the nations of Europe will begin heavily rearming to keep aid flowing to Ukraine and to keep Russia from invading other countries. That creates an even more potentially explosive situation as nations like Germany rearm and look eastward. But of course, a heavily armed Europe has never caused any problems for the world before, has it? Oh, right. Both World War I and World War II ignited into armed conflict largely because the US did not take the opportunity to mitigate the conflict before it exploded. And here we are again. Donald Trump has just admitted he's not up to this job. Now, what will it mean for the rest of us? This is Occupy Democrats.